Well, hiya folks, and welcome back to Isle of Wight Bushcraft. And this time out, guys, I'll be showing you how to rig your tarp for a quick deployment for in the rain or just to save time. So stay tuned. Now, one of the things with tarp camping, hammock camping, using a tarp, is often it can be a lot quicker to just put a tent up than time you put a tarp up and that. So rigging them this way is really useful for saving time. But also, if you need to deploy your tarp, because it's raining, we need to get it up quick, this will just make the job that much quicker. So firstly, just a few words on the tarp stuff sack. First thing I do is I've got several tarps of varying sizes, and what I do is I just put a little piece of colour-coded tab. For example, this one, so I know this is green. I've tabbed this as green, so I know that's my 4x3. The reason I tab them is sometimes I mix the bags up and I might have a 4x4 label on the bag, but it's actually only a 3x3 in there. So I know that if I colour code them, I won't get them muddled up. Even that itself can make sure that you bring the right tarp out that you want for that particular trip. And something worse than thinking you've brought a big enough tarp out and you haven't. You've only bought a 3x3 when you need the 4x4 and so forth. So colour coding, that's a good little tip. The one thing I do with the stuff sack itself, which holds our tarp, is I just heat up a piece of pipe, and you can use anything for this, any piece of metal pipe. I use copper, and I heat that up with a blowtorch. You can do it over the gas cooker or whatever you've got to hand, and I'll use that piece of pipe just to burn a hole in the bottom of the stuff sack. The reason I do that is so that when you're repacking your tarp, sometimes you'll notice that the tarp, it will inflate slightly, and it can be a job to get it back into the tarp bag. So packing it back in, it allows any air that's trapped in the tarp, you can squeeze it down and it will come out through the hole in the bottom of the tarp, of the stuff sack. The reason I burn the hole and use a piece of pipe to burn that hole is so that you don't get any fraying. If you were to cut that hole, it would fray. So burning seals the edge of the hole so that it doesn't split further. So that's a useful little thing to do. And one of the first things that you're going to need to do with your tarp is to rig it with a ridgeline. Now, you can use any kind of strong cordage. Most of us use paracord. That's the best thing. Blends in with the environment around us, and it's very strong and resistant to corrosion. So cut yourself a ridge line of about 50 feet of paracord, and then what you want to do is you want to thread that, depending on the size of your tarp, through the intermediary loops of your tarp. You'll see that on the ridge of the tarp, or the middle of the tarp, there are a number of loops going across the middle, and you'll have two end ones. We don't want to thread the ridge line through those end ones, just the middle three. So once you've cut your 40 or your 50 foot of paracord for your ridge line, or anything else or any other cordage that you're going to be using, what we want to do is we want to attach this between two anchor points. It's probably best if we go out in the forest and do this out in the field. So we want to do it evenly so that we've got equal ends, or equal tag ends, on both trees. So if we centralise our ridge line, tie it off between 2 points. So there's our first end fixed. So we've got our ridge line and we've measured it out equally so that we've got equal ends on both trees. We've attached one end of our ridge line and, as I say, measured it out equally. So we just take one end because we want to thread this through the ridge loops of our tarp. Now the way that I do it, prefer to do it, is I only do it through the intermediary ridge loops on the tarp. The two end ones, we don't thread those through. There we are, we've got our 3 intermediary loops. Just put the ridge line through that first one, and that central one, and the other one. So just pull that through. So that's our ridge attached to the tarp. Reason being, if you want to use tarp stays, which I use sometimes, they do help to give it a better, neater hang for the tarp. And sometimes if you don't use those, you'll find these intermediary ridge loops are a bit slack. They're not really doing anything. But by putting those stays in, it gives a tauter hang for the tarp, which means it's less liable to puddle. You get a better runoff of water, really. But anyway, so that's what we do, is we're putting this ridge loop through these 3 intermediary tarp loops, and then we'll attach it the other end to the opposing tree just there. So having attached the ridge line between our 2 trees, we now need to attach 2 prusik loops to our ridge line, one at either side of the tarp. Now I've found the best thing to use for your prusik loops is some of this kite twine or kite cordage. It's tough and it doesn't corrode, it lasts for ages, and but because it's thinner than your main ridge line, it has far more grip. I have found that if you use cordage for your prusik loops, which is the same thickness as the ridge line itself, they will slip. They grip for a little bit, but I've often found that if I use thicker stuff, you'll wake up in the morning or through the night and your tarp is a little bit, it's not as taut as it was. It slackens a little bit because those prusiks slip down the ridge line, but this doesn't. So when you're tying your prusik loops to your main ridge line, always advisable to use a thinner cordage than your main ridge line. So to tie your lark's head, it's easy. You just double up your kite twine, just tie a knot in the end, like so. Just a simple overhand knot, that's all you need, so that you've got a loop, and that's your lark's head. Then that just goes over your main ridge line as to form your attachment point, and we'll use a prusik knot for that. So go across to the ridge line and I'll show you how to do that now. So taking our lark's head, we just put it over the top of our ridge line and then pull the loop in on itself once, twice. You'll probably find twice is enough with this kite string. It's more than adequate, it won't move. There we are, and that's your prusik loops attached. Now ordinarily we would put this through the end of our tarp loop and then put the loop in on itself and then put a twig in there, but we want this permanently attached. All we do is use one of these lightweight carabiners and just put that in the end of our lark's head and leave that permanently attached. What I also do with my on my prusiks or my lark's head is I tie intermediary knots. So I've got a knot there and a knot there, as well as a knot at the end. The reason that I do that is so that if for some reason, say for example, I haven't got enough space between each tree, I can attach the reattach this at that point there, this carabiner, for a shorter span, or on that middle one for a slightly longer span. Oh, it never goes right on camera, does it? For a slightly longer span, or the usual, where I normally have it, at the end. But just by tying those knots, those intermediary knots in your lark's head or your prusik, well, actually it's a lark's head, but the prussik's the knot. But by doing that, it gives you the option, so you can attach there or there, a bit like a daisy chain tree hugger really. Just gives you that added option, and anything for an easier life. So all we need to do now is just take our tarp loop at the end of the tarp, and then put that through the carabiner, and then put tension on our prusik, and we leave that permanently like that, so that when we take the ridgeline out of the bag and tie it to the tree, the tarp will already be tensioned, ready to go. So there we are. We've got our prusiks connected to the ridgeline, and we've got one the other end as well. So what we're doing is basically we're tying our ridgeline between 2 points, and then we'll connect our tarp. The reason we're doing this is once this is done and we've set it up, we've connected it all, it's ready to go back in the bag, and then hanging our ridgeline and so forth up, all packs back into the bag, so that each time we use it, we take it out, it's already tensioned, the tarp, and ready to go, all ready to, as I say, if it's raining, we just dart inside. But it saves all the aggravation of pulling the tarp along and getting the sticks. Just saves time, and it's quick, it's done, particularly if it's bad weather, we can get in underneath pretty quick. So what we do now is we'll pull the tarp and just connect this end. You have to just be a little bit mindful that because we've got our utility attached, you will need to just put your arm underneath and grab that last loop. The mistake I've made before is I've grabbed one of the intermediary loops and connected, and it hasn't been correct. So there we are. So we pull that tight, and that's how we leave it. We just leave it permanently like that. We haven't got to worry about twigs coming out or damaging our tarp, because we've got these lightweight carabiners permanently attached. Like I say, the reason we do this is that when we take our ridge lines out and attach them, pull them taut, the tarp is already tensioned, ready to go. If it's pouring down with rain, we can just dart in underneath, we're in the dry, and we can guy out from inside to keep dry, put our kit underneath as well. Now you'll find that because we've pre-attached our prusiks to the end of the tarp, your actual ridge line between both ends of the tarp will be slightly on the slack side, only a little, but that's not a problem. We want that, because then we can put our stays which raise the ridge line. I've explained that in another vid. I'll put the links below if you want to know how to use these. But that just raises the ridge line, keeps our tarp loops, our intermediary tarp loops, nice and taut. Gives a good hang for the tarp. So there we are. Just imagine that it's pouring with rain. We've put our tarp up. It's already attached to our prusiks. We can just part it, get in underneath, and then if we have to, guy it out from inside. So it's just getting wet. But as I say, doing it this way also just saves us time as well. You'll notice as well that the tarp should come already rigged with 4 guy lines on each corner, but we do want to hank those. I've explained to you how to hank them, because when we pack the tarp away, that means that it's a lot easier to guy it out. We won't I'll be unpacking the tarp with tangled lines. Now, as well as having the corner guy lines, it's also useful to put a guy, I'm using a paracord in this instance, a paracord guy on the central anchor point of our tarp. If it's exceptionally windy, we can also guy that out, which helps to stop the tarp flapping about. But also if we're using a centre stanchion, which I've been using of late and been finding that very useful, We can also use them for anchoring our, or guying out our centre stanchion poles as well. It only needs to be a piece of paracord of about 10-12 foot long, and then all we can do, we can either use a quick release knot or the Farriman hitch when we stake it out. Now if you're not sure what a Farriman hitch is, I'll just show you briefly. It's not difficult. Just put your cordage or your guy line around your stake. Imagine this is your stake. Go around anti-clockwise and then just create a loop in this tag end, making sure that it goes, this tag end goes underneath. You don't want it to go over the top, you want it to go underneath. That's important. Okay, so we've created our loop, and then we go over the top of our main guy, and similar to a prusik, we're going to go over that, bring it up through on itself, over the main ridge line again, bring it up on itself, and the same again. In this instance I'm doing it 3 times, but normally I'll do it 4. And then that tag end, you bring it up through that loop there, which we've just gone over that main line, but don't pull it all the way through. We just want a loop there. Then just tidy that up, and there we go. And that's your Farriman hitch. And the good thing about that is it's a tensioning knot, but it's a sliding as well, so if you want to adjust you can just slide. So it's a good, there we are, so it's a good knot to use for guy lines. So progress so far then, we've threaded the ridge line through our 3 intermediary loops on the Tarp ridge. We've attached our prusiks and our lightweight carabiners, which we've now attached to the end ridge loops on either side of our tarp, and we stretched out and we've got it tensioned out. And also we've got equal lengths of our ridge line on each tree, so the tarp is centralised on that ridge. So there we are. What we need to do now is we take our utility line and we attach that to the underside. Now if you're not familiar with the utility line, which I use, an idea I thought is really useful for when you're out. I'll put a link in the description box below, and just click on that link and it will take you to the video explain how to make and use these utility lines. They're very useful, and I use these all the time now. Just a little idea that I came up with just to make life a little bit easier for keeping stuff up and out of the way and safe from getting lost. So what we do is we attach this to the inside now of that tarp loop on the underside, and then underneath through to the other side. Well, there we are. That's our tarp already pre-rigged and ready to go. We've got each corner with a guy line attached and hanked, ready to go. We've got 2 central anchor points of the tarp rigged with guy lines and hanked, ready to go. We've got our utility line attached on the underside of the ridge, remember our shock cord utility line with the lark's heads on for hanging stuff. That's attached on the underside of the ridge, and also we've got our prusik loops and lightweight carabiners already tensioning the tarp out, as I said earlier, so that when we take our ridge line, which is attached, that are on the top of the stuff sack, we take them out, attach one end, pull the rest of the tarp out the stuff sack, attach the other end to the other tree, and our tarp will already be tensioned out, ready to go. If it's hammering it down, we can just dart in underneath, go out from the inside, and then put our kit. It's a lot quicker this way, and it's just again for a quick deployment. As we know, it does take time to sometimes set up a hammock and tarp, but to get our tarp up quickly is anything to save a bit of time. And also we've used that hot pipe just to burn a hole in the bottom of our stuff sack, so that if the tarp starts to inflate, which it sometimes will do, where as we pack it the air can escape through this bottom hole, so we can get our tarp in. Okay, and again we've just colour coded the tarp so that we know which particular tarp it is. There we are. So there we are. Now that we've got our tarp all rigged up, ready to go, All we need to do now is just pack it into our stuff sack and ready to go. Now you'll see that I've got the prusik loop there, so you want to start hanking just after that, and just put your extend your thumb and your little pinky and go around your thumb, around your pinky, and you want to go round in figure of eights, and keep doing that. And the more you do this, the quicker you'll get. And what you want to do is you want to leave yourself a tag end of about 2.5 foot. And then what we do is we take those figure 8 loops off, just make them nice and neat, and then we take the tag and then we wrap it once around our figure 8 loops, and then the second wrap we go behind the first one, and that holds it all in place, and then we can extend our wraps or keep wrapping down those figure 8 loops, and you'll see what's happening there. Keep doing that until we get about 2 or 3 wraps from the end, and then put your finger in and make your last 2 or 3 wraps around that, the end, and then the tag end, pull through underneath those and then pull tight. And if you find that the loop's a little bit long, just pull it through again using your tab end, just pull it through again and then pull that loop tighter. You do that a couple of times and you'll find you'll get it really tight on itself. That's why I find two wraps at the end better. There we go. So there we go. So there's our ridgeline all hanked up, so that's ready to use for next time. So there we are, we've packed our tarp, so we just put our ridge lines on top and then cinch up the stuff sack like so. And there we are, ready to go. So there we are guys, that's all ready to go, pre-rigged, ready to go, straight out the bag, quick and easy. Now what I would recommend is that you probably best to go to the forest and take your bits and pieces that you need to pre-rig this, but then take it down and put it up a few times, have a little practice so you get used to the routine for putting it up. But I find that works really well, that doing it that way, rigging it that way and ready to go. Well, there we are guys, I hope you found that helpful, and all being well, I'll see you on the next video, so take care and bye for now.